Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones, and welcome to my, admittedly rather late video on my top 10 games of not E3. I was actually hoping to get this video out sooner, but I wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to show and tell before I finalized my list. Which, yeah, basically just means I was waiting for Nintendo. Alright, so what am I considering the not E3 season? Basically, everything I watched from Sony's State of Play on June 3rd, all the way up until Nintendo's Partner Showcase last week on June 28th. And to keep this list a bit more varied and interesting, I do have a couple of ground rules. Number 1, I'm only including newly announced games. Yes, of course I was excited to see Soul Hackers 2's English dub and get some actual gameplay of Return to Monkey Island. But I don't consider those games of not E3 so much as welcome updates. And yes, I am once again invoking the Ignorance Clause, which basically means if any game on this list makes you start typing, "Actually, that game was previously announced last year at such and such," save yourself the effort, because this not E3 season was the first time I'd heard about it, and it's my list. I'm also limiting myself to a maximum of 2 games for any particular event, because otherwise I could definitely fill this entire list with games from only 2 or 3 shows, and I think things would start to get a little repetitive. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Every now and then, I am surprised that the simplest premise is enough to spark my interest. Time Flies is a game about being a fly with a short lifespan, and just seeing what you're capable of doing with your short time on this earth. The minimalist art style and concepts really drew me into the Day of the Dev after spacing out during the Summer Game Fest. That joke really only works if you watched the Summer Game Fest. There were a lot of space games. Like, a lot. Yes, of course I'm gonna talk about Persona. Now, just to clarify, I am counting this as an entry from the Xbox presentation and not the Nintendo one, since the Xbox one is where it was first showcased. I do have it this low on the list because, yes, obviously I'm psyched that after all these years, Persona 5 is coming to other consoles, and more importantly, Persona 3 and 4 are finally coming to modern systems, but they are just pretty simple ports, and as happy as I am to play them again, I'm not gonna pretend they're the games I'm most looking forward to. But speaking of Persona, a few years ago I started following a developer on Twitter who claimed they wanted to make an action RPG/dating sim inspired by Persona. And that sounds right up my alley. And as I saw from the Eternights trailer at the State of Play, yeah, it's up my alley. And I'm definitely interested in seeing more. By the way, I don't count this as breaking the "I can't have heard of it until this season" rule, because I didn't know that the game I'd been following the dev for and this game were the same until after the fact. And I guess while I'm discussing RPGs with openly Megami Tensei-inspired roots, Demon School from the PC Gaming Show looks absolutely fantastic. The environments look great, the pixel art stands out, I really like the blending of visual aesthetics, and the strategy RPG combat looks perfect for me. I am absolutely looking forward to exploring this world and getting to know this cast of characters. Alright, so kind of a funny story. A few months ago, I was thinking about what games I want to cover on the channel next year. I really like 3D platformers, and I haven't covered a lot of those on the show, and sometimes I like to use my channel as an excuse to play games I'd previously missed out on playing. One game I was strongly considering getting, because I'd never actually played it before, was Pac-Man World. So imagine my surprise to see that game is now getting a full remake in just a couple of weeks with Pac-Man World Re-Pac. So yeah, definitely seems like a good time for me to play it. Oh, and feel free to let me know if you would like to see me do a video on that game, because, you know, feedback helps. Little Bear Chef is a game that already offers everything it promises in the title. You are a bear, you are a chef, and you are indeed rather little. Couple that with an insanely charming art style and Yeah, I am in. I am already in love with this world, and I cannot wait to immerse myself in making some tasty treats with this tiny little bear. As much as I love farming life sim games, I definitely feel like the genre has expanded so much that I have to become just a little bit pickier about which ones I'm willing to devote my time towards. I mean, there were several announced this season. You had like Coral Island, and Super Zoo Story, and Critter Crops, and the game I'm giving this spot to, which, by the way, isn't even the only game of the genre on today's list. However, despite the variety of choices, I have to confess that Roots of Pacha intrigued me, with its prehistoric setting, its focus on unique animals, and it was very smart of them to confirm that the game has dating mechanics, because that's always a plus for me when it comes to these types of games. I am absolutely looking forward to this one. I have a bit of an odd relationship with Devolver, but rather than going into that, I will say I can generally expect them to support, promote, and publish some really good-looking games. And one that I think popped up on everyone I know's radar was the Plucky Squire. This world-bending, stylish RPG adventure looks colorful, charming, and fun. Plus, it's from James Turner, so that's cool. Alright, this might count as cheating, because I know I said I was limiting myself to 2 games per show, but technically this came from the Japanese Nintendo Partner Showcase, which is a completely different show, right? Right? Look, I'm sorry, but you show me an official Ultraman Monster Rancher crossover game where you raise kaiju on a farm, I'm gonna be excited for it. And the absolute best part is that while I was writing this script, a trailer was released confirming that it's getting an English release in Southeast Asia. So, yeah, I am absolutely importing this. Even if it wasn't an Ultra Kaiju game, it still looks like it has the charm of everything I love about Monster Rancher, and I am thrilled to jump back into that franchise with this crazy unexpected, but also rather fitting crossover. You know, when I sat down to make this list, there were a few games I knew would be on it, like Time Flies and Little Bear Chef. But I didn't really have a clear idea of what my absolute number 1 even was. Now, one that absolutely surprised me in the best possible way was Doraemon Story of Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom, which, by the way, if I had a nickel for every video game I was looking forward to in 2022 that's a crossover between a beloved Japanese series from the 60s and a game franchise centered on farm life,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
I actually really loved the original Doraemon Story of Seasons as a life sim farming game, and I absolutely think both it and the upcoming sequel deserve way more attention than they get. I think I was all set to give this game my number 1 spot of not E3, but then one other title happened to sneak up on me. Harvestella is Square Enix Rune Factory. Yeah, that's probably an oversimplification, but come on, look at it. However, I am super into that. I enjoy Rune Factory, and Square already blew me away earlier this year with Triangle Strategy. So a brand new Square Enix IP that's also a story-driven, world-exploring farm sim game, it's not the game that had me hooping or hollering at my screen or anything, but the more I look at it, the more I really feel like this was my top game of not E3 2022. This is the game that truly feels like it appeals to me. Now give me one of those fat chickens and let me know who the dating options are. Alright, and there we go, my top 10 games of not E3 2022. Despite the main event being cancelled, I feel like a lot of great developers and companies still went out of their way to make June the fun-filled month for announcements that we've come to expect. What were some of your favorite games of not E3 2022? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. So until then, take care.